afternoon, everybody, and thank you for watching Rachel's Reliable News Network. Today, we have a couple of topics to discuss, all of which are controversial, especially in today's time. All of my topics today have some sort of slavery in one form or another. As we wish to hear more about what is going on in today's time, let's take it over to our number one reporter, Boyd Rachels, as he asks people some questions about the horrors that are occurring currently. Over to you, Boyd. Thanks, Boyd. Today, I am here with Mr. Bruce.
Good morning.
Today, we will be interviewing him about the Kansas-Nebraska Act. My first question for you is, the Kansas-Nebraska Act would add Kansas and Nebraska as territories of the U.S. It also repealed the Missouri Compromise by making slavery legal north of the 3630 latitude line. How do you feel the people react to this?
Well, I think it's pretty obvious that there were views on both sides of the table. Some people thought this was a great thing. Some people thought this was the most ridiculous thing that they've ever heard of. So we continue this conversation trying to make sense of all the craziness that is happening currently in the United States.
Mm-hmm. And how do you personally feel about this?
Well, as I sit here in 1820, I personally feel that for us to own humans and trade humans and rip humans from their families in order for some other person to benefit is embarrassing. It is beyond comprehension for me. And I'll say this: should myself and somebody who feels that way walk into a room and the rule was only one of us could come out, I am certain that I would be the one to come out.
Well, thank you so much, Mr. Bruce. That was very insightful. Today, we're here with Mika and Hamilton.
Hello.
Hi.
And I will be interviewing both of them about the Compromise of 1850. So, in the Compromise of 1850, one of the bills made buying and selling of slavery abolished in the District of Columbia. However, slavery was still allowed. How do you think that this will play a big impact on slavery to the southern and northern states, and also the opinion of America to the outside world?
So slavery being abolished in only the capital gave Europe a false view of how America viewed slavery, or our standpoint on it. And then it gave the North the ability to keep their status with foreign countries, and it gave the South the ability to continue to thrive off their slave-focused industry.
Okay, so personally, I don't like slavery, but I think the capital abolishing the slave trade is a monumental step for this country. Once the capital abolishes it, other states will follow.
Thank you all very much for this information. You all have helped me understand this a lot more personally myself. Thank you all for your time. Well, today we have Mr. Inman with us, and I will be asking him about John Brown's raid on Harper's Ferry. My first question for you is, why did John Brown's raid on Harper's Ferry make Southerners view Brown as a terrorist wanting to destroy their civilization?
Well, he wanted to destroy their way of life, and their way of life is based on an institution known as slavery. And what we're seeing in America now is we're seeing what was once radical newspapers and radical books that are being published. Now we have radical actions. And John Brown, even before Harper's Ferry, is no stranger to violence. He was in Kansas. He did fight in Kansas, and the rumor is that he killed some people in Kansas. And then he comes to Harper's Ferry to try to create this ill-fated rebellion where all the slaves in the South are going to rise up against their masters. And let's remember, this is the first one. We've had rebellions all the way through the early 1800s, and it's something that we haven't dealt with. The government in Washington hasn't dealt with this problem. The people in the South haven't dealt with this problem. And now it's become so big that we have violence. This is something that we allowed to grow, and we didn't discuss it. We didn't solve the problem, and now we're at a place where I really fear that we're going to be in for some bad waters coming up. And it makes me afraid for our nation. It makes me afraid for the South as well as the North. There are lots of people who have opposite opinions, and they were refusing to compromise. There is no discussion and no talk. And when you have no discussion and no talk, then you have guns and you have killings and you have Harper's Ferry. Yeah.
And for my second question, why do you think that the Northerners admire his act and felt that he had courage for this?
He was a radical, and radicals in the North admire him. I believe that I don't necessarily disagree with what he stood for, but to take up guns and kill people for what you believe is extreme. And I think that's too extreme. There have to be other ways to solve this problem without violence. And that's all that John Brown knew. And the shame of it is that now he's arrested and then he gets executed and now he's a martyr. Now people are seeing him as heroes. And what used to be just a small percentage of people that thought that way, I see growing larger every day. People thinking that they want to be the next John Brown, or they want to be the next person to go and free all the slaves. And that's a very radical idea. So I think it's only bad. I mean, we have to stop, we have to take a breath, and we have to talk it out. Violence is not the answer, but I'm afraid that we're not going to do that. So.
Well, thank you so much for your input on this.
Yeah.
This is very enlightening with your information.
Sorry.
Today we have Joey with me. Today I'll be asking him about the Wilmot Proviso. The Wilmot Proviso was an amendment made by President James K. Polk for the funding of newly acquired territories. It prohibited the expansion of slavery into any territory bought by the U.S. from Mexico. It would eventually not pass after being shut down by the Senate. Why do you think that the House of Representatives would allow this bill to pass, but the Senate would not allow it?
So I think the House of Representatives were trying to say that it's right for it to pass, but because the South dominates the Senate, they can't let it pass because of their economy depending on slavery. And they need to expand slavery to the West so that they can get more votes in the Senate so they can keep slavery alive forever. But the House of Representatives want there to be more votes against slavery to get rid of slavery. So I think that it's just to show that the Senate wants slavery to stay because it's dominated by the South, and the House of Representatives wants slavery to be ended.
Do you think that the House of Representatives were looking at the other countries and seeing how they have already abolished slavery? Do you think that played a role in them wanting it to pass?
I do. I think that the House of Representatives, since that their vote came first, it would be much easier for them to look at other countries and just pick whatever they see how times are changing. I think it's easier for them to just say, well, these other countries are doing this, so I think, yeah, they would look at other countries and decide whatever they decided.
What are your opinions on this amendment? Do you feel like that it should have been passed?
I think for the sake of the future, I think it'd be better for it to be passed because it's very obvious that there's going to be an issue between slavery and those for abolition. And just to prevent that, I think it's more necessary to get more votes in the Senate to go against slavery so this can be ended peacefully, not through a war.
Well, thank you so much for taking time with me to answer these questions.
Today I have Ms. Hadaway with me, and let's hear her insight on this question. So why do you think that even though the slaves were free, that the court ruled that in the Dred Scott decision that they could never become citizens of the United States?
So I think this is a really interesting question, and one that the Dred Scott decision wasn't necessarily trying to answer with kind of the merits of the case. So not only is it saying that Dred Scott had to be kind of retained as property in this free state, right, violating the Missouri Compromise. It also is going a step further and saying that Dred Scott didn't even have kind of the rights to bring up his case in the first place, saying that whether he was free, whether he was enslaved, that Black people would not be able to become citizens of the United States. And this is a really big court case decision. Citizenship in this regard wasn't really kind of addressed in the founding documents, and so this is kind of a vocal statement on citizenship rights. Now this won't be remedied until the 14th Amendment after the Civil War. So it's going to take an entire Civil War to really remedy this. And so for me, and a lot of historians kind of looking back on this time agree that this is one of the most egregious decisions by the Supreme Court. The Supreme Court makeup at this time is very sympathetic to the South. And so for me, a Northerner in the 1850s, I kind of disagree with this decision and see it as even more divisive in this conflict.
So what I'm getting at here is that you do not agree with the decision made in the court case?
No, I do not agree with the citizenship decision of Dred Scott.
All right, well, thank you so much for your time.
Thank
Let's
you.
hear back from you.